Alright, hello everyone. I'm aiming to make a thorough video on stencil dyeing golf discs. I encourage everyone to read the intro in the details. I'll include everything I use and explain a few more things in the details. These are some of the discs I've done over the last year, but rather than show a short, pristine success video, I'm opting to try and cover some of the challenges you can face. In no way do I claim to be the expert on this content, and you'll see I'm no filming expert, but I get asked a lot of questions about my dyes, so I hope this helps. For this disc dye, we are immediately facing multiple challenges. It's a baseline DX-like plastic. It's a Discraft Avenger SS. Baseline plastic doesn't dye well, and it fades quickly compared to premium plastics. Also, we're working with a fairly dark blue disc, which greatly inhibits the color options and requires you to think about the color wheel and how dye color will mix with the disc color. A main trick to stencil dyeing is image selection. Choose high resolution, large images with definitive black lines that separate the colors that you're going to paint in afterwards. You can really only do black on red discs. That disc there was a yellow disc, and that disc was a gold disc. Most of this is star plastic. So for this, I've chosen a simple shark's image by request. In Microsoft Paint, I'm just quickly changing the colors of the background and removing the white because you can't do white on a blue disc, just to sort of visualize and see what the disc will look like when I dye it. So I'll upload the image. 99% of the time I'm using just the simple setting. And now you're going to select all of the black off of the image. There's a new software update that's made this really silly as it zooms out each time you select a piece. This would have made some of my previous really complicated stencils virtually impossible. I hope they fix this in the software soon. But we'll power through it. Just going to select it to be a cut. And then we'll load that image into a project file. Now you can see there's a big black square that currently it would cut out. So what we're going to do is we're going to contour it. Pick that down in the bottom right-hand corner. And just select the large box and then close it. You'll see that'll reverse everything. So now you got to get a sense of what size you want. So just measuring the disc. And then, yeah, you're going to add a circle out of the shapes. And you can numerically size it to the exact size of the disc. Put the stencil layer on top and sort of size it how you like it. Now we're going to add a really small circle that we're going to use for centering purposes. So selecting the large circle, and again, the zooming features on this software are not great. So you see there I was selecting the stencil, but I'll correct myself. Afterwards, you want to select the circle. And yeah, get your little circle lined up with the center of the big circle. It can be a bit finicky. Once you've got it in place, you're going to select the small circle and you're going to set it to be a drawing instead of a cut. You're going to use the pen that goes into the machine. Now you can delete the large circle, you don't need that anymore. And then you need to attach the two objects. So over on the right, you're going to select both the stencil and the small circle, and then in the bottom right hand corner you can select to attach them so that they're linked together. Finally, we're going to click Make It. You want to make sure that your mat is set to a 12 by 12. It's what you're going to want to use. And center it into the middle of your mat. Now I'm cutting myself a 12 by 12 sheet of Oracal 651 vinyl. One of the best ways to keeping your cutting mat sticky and clean and free of lint and hair is to leave the vinyl backing from the previous job in place. I like to roll my vinyl backwards a little bit just to get it kind of flattened out, easier to apply. Other option is to cut multiple sheets and stack them under books so that they get flattened out. Get your new sheet on there. And use a card of some kind to smooth it out and make sure the adhesion is good. Make sure you have your pen loaded in to the drawing side of the cutter. set the mat in with the loading button. Make sure it slides under, and then click go. You'll see it's going to quickly draw with the pen first, that little center circle, and then it'll cut it. It's all done. Unload it. Always make sure you cap your drawing pen immediately so it doesn't get dried out. And close up your machine right away so no dust and lint gets in there. Alright, so now we'll talk stamp removal. So we're taking it outside and I've got gloves on. We've got some non-chlorinated brake cleaner, basically aerosolized acetone, but I don't find it quite as harsh as straight acetone. I've got a bucket of soapy water to dunk it in, and cotton makeup pads. I'm going to give it a little spray, let it sit on there for a sec, and then it's just going to get a gentle wipe with the cotton pad. I'm not scrubbing. Switching cotton pads frequently is a good idea, and I give it a dunk. And then I'm going to go again a little bit just to get rid of some of the smeared black stamp. Okay, we're going to go inside and we're going to use a bit of dish soap and magic eraser. And we're going to do it in the sink with running water, keeping it very wet all the time. Now, you're going to see some scrubbing going on here, which is a bit like kind of finely sanding the disc, which you're going to see that with baseline plastic, it kind of ruins the finish a little bit. I'm going to show another couple of stamp removals that I was doing for examples. For example, one time the brake cleaner did kill a disc a while back. There was like a crackling and popping and melting the second it hit my Tour Ricky Pig. But the second and third disc I'm showing are better examples of what happens like 95% of the time with premium plastic. This was a Neo Enigma. The acetone brake cleaner did a 95% job. Just going to use the magic eraser to get some of the last bits of green and some of the ghost stamp cleaned up. Even when the acetone brake cleaner does a really good job, I often just finish it off with a gentle to aggressive magic eraser, depending upon what's left on it. The long story short with stamp removal is if you want perfection, get bottom stamped or blank premium discs. But that came off pretty clean. This one had a tournament stamp on it that the brake cleaner didn't touch very well at all, but with a gentle, maybe not so gentle magic eraser. It's coming off perfectly, and it doesn't appear to be changing the finish on the disc at all. This is a Innova Glow. Yeah, so here's a bunch of the stamps I did at the same time. You can see the Innova Glow one was fine. The Champ Mamba came off like butter. The Avenger SS has a bit of damage. This Premium Slammer took tons of elbow grease. And that red one there is probably the best example of a fail on a stamp removal. It was Pro Vulcan, and much like the Pro Pig, it didn't stand up to any of it very well. It's kind of messed up. So for putting transfer tape on top of the stencil, I'm kind of, because this is such a simple stencil, I'm winging it a little bit and reusing a piece of transfer tape on a really nice, complicated new stencil on a disc you cared about. You wouldn't mess around with reused transfer tape. You'd use a new sheet. But the same principle would apply in terms of how you apply it. I like to bend it in half and then set it down in the middle and then fold both sides down. And then this is even more important, to use a card and to really smooth it out and make sure that you've got good adhesion between the tape and the vinyl, because you want to make sure that it picks up all little pieces and stuff like that. Now my laser pointer setup is a little bit unorthodox. A desk lamp or something would work fine, but I use a broken microphone stand. I work on a glass table and I put a little underlight in place. Peel off the vinyl sideways. Don't pull up, pull sideways. I use my underlight to more clearly see that the laser is over top of the center. I end up having to readjust the laser a few times during this. The light turned off the one time because I didn't have the button taped down well enough. Again, be detail-oriented and finicky and make sure you get the laser right over top, and hold your breath so you're not blowing on it and shaking it. And then get steady and anchor your fingers to the table so that you steady your hands, and lower the disc down. Oh, see, I needed to readjust the laser again there. having a laser fixed to something securely would probably be smarter on my part. But yeah, line up the laser on the center of the disc and get it down. Press all over the bottom of the disc, in and around the rim and everything like that, to again try and get the vinyl thoroughly secured to the disc before you start lifting it up in the air or anything. And now here's a real finicky part. You're going to address your rim. My hands are pretty small, so you can see I can't really get over the corners there. But basically you're pushing bubbles and creases out towards the edge. Yeah, so I went and got some scissors here to cut off the corners because you don't want to necessarily fold it over while trying to do this part. Yeah, so it's a really finicky part of the job. I mean, if it's a disc like the disc that we're doing now, you don't really need to be as detail oriented because we don't have that much in terms of stencil detail going out towards the rim. But again, I kind of wanted to show you guys if you had a stencil like some of the ones I showed in the intro where the details do lap over the edge, then these are some of the techniques that you'd have to be a bit more diligent with, getting out all those creases and bubbles. Maybe I'll figure out how to fast forward some of this. You also might not get away with a little bit of the pulling up that I did just there as easily with a complicated edge stencil. All right, fold over your edges in a circular motion. Again, try and make sure that all the vinyl's pressed down well on the disc. And then we're going to talk about removing your transfer tape. So the same sort of idea applies as the last clip, where with this stencil, because there isn't really a whole lot of detail out towards the edge, I could have potentially pulled this sheet of transfer tape off all in one piece. But I kind of wanted to show you the technique that's going to be necessary if you've got, well, not even necessary, but way more helpful if you've got lots of detailed cuts around the edge of the disc. It's better to use an X-Acto knife like I am here and gently slide it under the top layer of transfer tape and start pulling out pieces from the center out towards the edge. Because if you're pulling it off out towards the edge, you won't end up lifting up your rim details and stuff. Same deal applies. Don't pull straight up, as you might end up pulling off some of your smaller pieces. Try to pull off to the side. If you do at any point notice that you are pulling up a piece, all you need to do is lay it back down and gently run your fingernail over top of the transfer tape to get the vinyl piece beneath it stuck to the disc better. and then you should be able to pull right off. And I might as well say it now. Coming up after this clip, I screwed up and I lost the footage of me weeding this disc, taking out the pieces that were going to be dyed black. I do a silly thing where I mime doing the weeding for a second, but the gist of it is pretty simple. A weeding tool is good to use, but you can do it with an X-Acto knife, and you want to be conscious of your disc at the same time. If you're using an X-Acto knife, you could potentially slice it a little bit. Some discs weed super easily if the lines are all well connected and they're not super tiny. You can grab one little piece of your black line and pull upwards, and so long as you're careful and you're looking at making sure that you're not picking up unwanted pieces, you can end up pulling up a huge portion of the disc all in one go. So here's me doing my silly miming of weeding stuff. The other good thing to do while you're weeding is look for any bubbles or creases that are coming into play with an edge of a line that you've just pulled out. Bubbles in the flat outer part of the disc that aren't going to get dyed don't really matter at all. I got the crock pot with a frying pan on top on low setting. Always use drop sheets. Got Ritz synthetic charcoal mixed 50-50 with water. Anytime you're using heat, there's a little bit of risk involved in screwing up the disc. The crock pot has been too hot on a couple of occasions, and so often I find I'm turning it off just to be more careful. You can always do like a cool, warm dip and just be more patient, which I often do. I've shown some progress pics here at like 1 and 2 hours, and then the last one's at 7 hours in a warm dip where I was turning off the crock pot a fair bit. Yeah, so you can see there it is after like 6-7 hours. Gonna give her a rinse. Also helps to cool off the disc. And now we'll weed out some of the spots that we're going to color. I went a bit of a backdoor route to get brown for the hockey stick on a blue disc. I mean, the obvious answer would have just been to have used orange right on the blue, but I went with adding yellow to make it green, and then I added some pink to blend with the green to get the brown. So this is Spike It lure dip that I'm using. It has acetone in it. Its effect is instant. You can't be willy-nilly with it because you think that the vinyl edge is going to have your back and it's going to protect you. The acetone eats away at the vinyl glue like really easily, so it can lift the edges and color can bleed underneath. So you need a well ringed out brush rather than leaving pools of liquid lined up next to the edge of the vinyl, because it'll eat it. You could clean your cheap dollar store brushes with acetone after each use and be able to use them for multiple colors. I just have dedicated ones, a brush for each color, and that way I just kind of swirl it around inside the worm dip a little bit before using it, and it's as good as cleaned off. If you're painting really close to other colors and you're getting other colors onto your brush and then sending it back into your yellow, you're potentially contaminating it a little bit, so you can be a bit mindful of that. Yeah, rather than putting too much on, it's definitely better to go real lightly with it and just do multiple coats. So some lure dips can leave like a residue, particularly the pink stuff. So if you're going to be layering colors, or even if you're painting really closely to another color, when you switch colors, giving the disc a light soapy sponge wipe can sort of help reduce color contamination. Yeah, the pink Spike It in particular leaves a lot of residue, and so you can think that you've achieved a color, and then when you clean the disc, you'll see that a lot of the brighter pink features wipe off, and it leaves you with more of like a matte lighter pink. Because yeah, that looks pretty brown now compared to the yellow eyes, but you'll see at the end that it almost kind of goes back to being yellow with a bit of brown. And I've decided last second to make the teeth yellow too. Yeah, like I almost boo-booed there and started taking the vinyl off without capping your die. Cap your die, avoid spills. People have told me about vinyl leaving a lot of vinyl glue on the disc that's needed cleaning off. I've maybe done like 70 discs now, and I've maybe experienced that like once or twice. I don't really find that to be the case very often. There we go. Here's a few examples of other discs I've done that I guess you got to see at the beginning. You can see how this yin yang disc is latitude 64 gold line plastic, and it seems to really, really dye well. The Kastaplast dyes well and is really bright, but in terms of maintaining the detail, that gold line plastic is amazing. That one took a while. Oh yeah, and Spike It is UV reactive, well, mostly just the yellow and green, but by no means is it glow in the dark. But when you do take it out for a night round, if it's also a glow disc, the UV reactivity looks really cool in the black light.